Good evening, everyone, and today is the season finale of the 16th season of The Hard Truth. Unfortunately, our guest bailed on us. We promised not to mention his name, but not to worry, the show has to continue. So we are bringing you a recap of some of our episodes. It's been quite a journey for the past of episodes. We have covered issues from entrepreneurship, education, development, politics, health, economy, and other critical national issues of concern. We have had insightful interviews with a cross-section of personalities, and each of these interviews had their moments and things that we can learn from. Today, I'm going over the important highlights of these interviews and also give my take on some of the key issues that came up. This is the season finale of The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akosua Konadu Asante Samuels. At the beginning of the season, we had discussions with two international guests, Ms. Alvin of Singapore, Minister of State for Trade and Industry, and Mrs. Ifeyinwa, CEO of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. We focused on issues relating to Africa and the international landscape that have repercussions on our development. For the Singapore discussion, Mr. Alvin, he explored the success story of Singapore and the lessons that we can draw to aid in our development. After independence, we started on the same level with Singapore. Singapore even had a worse starting point than us because they had no natural resources, they had no water resources. But as we speak right now, Singapore is one of the richest countries in the world. But after over 60 years, where are we as a country in terms of development? We are trailing far behind Singapore. What has accounted for this disparity? It would interest you to know that leadership played a vital role in Singapore's development. Their leader, Lee Kuan Yew, had a lasting foundation that his successors built upon. They invested in their people in terms of education. They ranked at the top. Their practice of meritocracy is also helping them. Everyone is given the opportunity to excel. They have zero tolerance for corruption. The fight against corruption over the years is real. Singapore is one of the least corrupt countries in the world because their punitive measures are deterrent enough and they are applied. So why can't we achieve this in Ghana? Let's take a look at some of the excerpts from this interview. So moving on to it, it's more of a cliche now when we talk of Singapore's miraculous economic success story. Now rising from a slum city to a first world power in just a few decades. We all see a fully developed Singapore, which we all admire. But Singapore had very difficult beginnings, I would say. In the words of Singapore's Minister Shan Mugaratnam, on the Hard Talk interview with Stephen Saka, he said this, and I quote, he said that we had every disadvantage you can think of as a nation. We did not expect to survive. We were not expected to survive. End of quote. Let me ask you if you can define one thing that made Singapore's success story possible. What would it be, Alvin?
Well, Akosua, Tharman Shanmugaratnam, Senior Minister, is one of our most talented and respected leaders, not just in Singapore, but also globally. And I think many Singaporeans who've watched that Hard Truth segment with Stephen Saka came off feeling even prouder of Minister Shanmugaratnam after the interview. I think the short answer to your question, Akosua, is our people. Because in 1965, 57 years ago, when Singapore left the Federation of Malaysia, many people, actually, in fact, very few, expected us to survive, let alone prosper. And our Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, had also said in 1957 that this idea, it's quite an absurd idea, of an independent Singapore was a political, economic, and geographical absurdity. Akosua, if you came to Singapore, we are about 728.6 kilometers wide. And in 1965, 57 years ago, we have no natural resources. I think even now we have very limited natural resources. We have no hinterland, we have no industry. So we depended on the outside world effectively for our food, our water, our energy, even our security. And the the relationship between our people, the relationship between businesses and industry was also not so strong. And our unemployment was close to 9%. So when we separated from Malaysia, our founding Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, in fact, there was a very famous video of him crying because he thought that he had let our nation down. We were then a very, very small island. So that's one, we were separated from our family, as it were, then. And then toward the south of us, we have a big neighbor, Indonesia. And there was, you may remember, a confrontation where Indonesia had opposed the formation of the Federation of Malaysia, which is comprising of Singapore, Malaya, Sarawak, and Sabah, which is North Borneo. And that's between 1963 to 1966. And so we were cut off our northern hinterland. We were also cut off our southern hinterland. So in addition, it was very difficult because you remember in 1968, the British also famously said we would remove all of our troops east of the Suez by 1971. And that also included troops from Singapore. So in a one fell swoop, we had lost our northern hinterland, our southern hinterland as effectively, and also the support that the British had in terms of their troops and all the infrastructure that.
So all the odds were against you, Alvin. All the odds were against you. You didn't have water. It was a small island. So I want to know what made it possible for you. What was that one thing that made it possible for Singapore?
Our people, without a shadow of a doubt, because that was the only thing, Akosua, that we had. We had no water, no land, no resources, no industry. So our people, we had good leaders, very thankfully, that first generation of leaders led by Mr. Lee Kuan Yew and his team that saw us through, made very different decisions, you know.
Singapore rewards meritocracy, whether in private sphere or in the public sector. Everyone is allowed the opportunity to succeed based on the same test you do. The most talented are selected afterwards. Now, while meritocracy identifies those who are gifted early and rewards them with opportunities, don't you think, Alvin, again, that it stifles the growth of late bloomers or those who excel in non-academic fields?
Yes, I very much agree with that. And I think in the early stages of our development, you have to focus on a large swath of making sure that our people, and I mentioned again, is that story, right? For my parents' generation and my generation to quickly get the key critical skills that are relevant to the world. As the world shifts from a very industrialized base to a very much of a creative base, which is now the era that we are in. And we are in an era where technology, the knowledge economy are all particularly accelerated by COVID, has provided a whole slew of expertise as well as opportunities. So what we have done is first to make sure that meritocracy is one of the foundations of Singapore's success. So you reward those who have done well, through our education system, through our hiring. And I think that makes sure that we try to address issues such as corruption. So you pay your people well in the public service. It's a performance-based culture, meritocracy in public service. You have fiscal prudence.
Alvin, if I go to school and I don't pass, it will be very difficult for me to climb the academic ladder. Don't you think so?
I had to repeat a year in school, Akosua. And yet, I found my paths, respectively. My sister also wasn't very good. I think she didn't do very well in primary school. And then she found her own paths. And I think that is the merit of our system, that we are now also creating multiple pathways, whether you are skilled in the arts, whether you are skilled in the math, whether you are skilled in sports. We are providing multiple areas and peaks of excellence, helping our people to gain new skills, and also helping to make sure that there are good companies, foreign companies that come in, create very exciting jobs for our people. I think those are areas in which you create a structure where even people who fail early in their lives, like myself, can find alternative pathways to succeed.
So that means we are, apart from education, we are finding other means, maybe in training or petty trading for others who are not really academically sound.
I think that's spot on, because as technology moves, anything you want to find out, you find out on Google, right? Most of the time. But how do you apply what you learned online and work with other people to create something of value? I think that is very, very critical. And in Singapore, what we've also done is we have, for a couple of years now, pushed through this thing called the Skills Future movement. And Skills Future means to help us to focus our attention on creating skills-based learning for Singaporeans. So, if you could be a hairdresser, how do you make it even, a nicer styles, for example? 2, if you are a coder, how do you use Python, for example, or CCC+? So you have a whole series of a skills framework, and we give our people about $1,000 to $1,500 to go learn new skills. We are now refining this Skills Futures framework so that we're working with industry, we're working with our unions to ensure that our people get skills rather than qualifications. And then work with our potential employers so that they recognize those skills and ensure that they do on-the-job training for our people so that they learn those skills on the job, and then they build and they add value to their companies, to their industries.
You didn't buy a vote from your delegates?
In Singapore, that does not happen. In Singapore, you go down to the ground. Tonight, I could say, after I speak with you, in about an hour after I speak with you, I'm going down to a block of public housing flats to meet with my constituents, to learn about what is most important to them, to see whether their drains are being cleared, to see whether there's mosquitoes, to see whether they're okay with COVID. 1 hour later, I'm taking off my suit, I'm going down. And when we win, if we win the elections, every round, the campaign, so-called the campaign, starts the very next day. And that is the discipline that Mr. Lee Kuan Yew have installed in the People's Action Party and our government for over 7 years. What I'm trying to say is we don't think about the short-term elections. I'm saying that every time when we win an election, if we win an election, the very next day we are down to governing. The very next day we are down to serve our people, and the people will see us in their place, in their homes, and if they trust us, they will give us a new mandate. Yeah.
Mrs. Ifeyinwa gave insightful view on entrepreneurship and stressed that for Africa's private sector to thrive, for us to develop as a continent, we need to promote entrepreneurship, and I agree with her. Our youth population is increasing, but government can only employ a few. So what happens to the majority? What employment opportunities exist for them? People will complete universities and have to stay home for years because they can't get jobs. So entrepreneurship is definitely the way to go. Although successive governments have been increasing on focusing on entrepreneurship, we still have a long way to go. Let's look at some of the excerpts from the interview. Over the years, we've had government implement various incubator and entrepreneurial support schemes in bid to promote entrepreneurship and create jobs, quote, I would say. But these schemes have, I would say, been attracted or they've been attacked and criticized, looking at the way they've been handled. No proper monitoring system, inappropriate fund disbursement, among others. What are your views when it comes to government-sponsored incubators and entrepreneurship support schemes?
So you are making the case for Afro-capitalism.
Yeah.
And the answer to that is quite simple. You can't be all things to all people. And that is why collaboration is so important. Because if you have someone who is a policymaker and you now ask them to become a private sector leader or an entrepreneurship trainer, it doesn't quite work. So what I would advise is that government should partner with private sector when it comes to interventions and schemes like that.
Partnership, what exactly? Because we hear that let's partner, private sector needs to partner with government. Let's look at practical intervention schemes. What kind of partnerships are we looking at here?
So, for instance, entrepreneurship empowerment.
Right.
Don't reinvent the wheel. If you've seen a tried and tested model that's working, like the Tony Emelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program, then key into that. And that's why you have organizations that have partnered with us, like the European Commission. The European Union is committed over 20 million euros last year to empower African women Only African women across 20 African countries. Now, they have the financial muscle to run their own program. But they said, you know what? These guys are doing it. They're credible. They're transparent. We've seen the work that they're doing. Let's just partner with them. And that frees you up to do other things that only government can do.
So what advice would you give to, I'm sure government is listening now, but what advice would you give to government who says, well, we know we have such foundations, but you promise our people to create jobs for them. It's not working. What advice would you give to governments like that?
The advice I would give is that at the end of the day, people are tired of a hand out. They want a hand up. People don't want to be given fish. They want to be taught how to fish. So look for the experts, those who are experts in training, those who are experts in funding, and those who are experts in monitoring and evaluation. Because it is not a flash in the pan. Entrepreneurship empowerment is a long-term journey. It's not something you do for 1 year or 2 years or even 4 years and say, okay, I'm done. You're never done. Our alumni are part of us for as long as we live. The monitoring and evaluation continues 20, 30, 50 years from now. Because that is the only way you can ensure accountability, and that is the only way you can track what's working, what's not working, and what you can improve on.
Looking at the future of entrepreneurship in Africa, what forces do you see or expect to shape entrepreneurship in the next decade?
Technology, 100%. You know, Africa missed the first 3 industrial revolutions. We cannot afford to miss the 4th industrial revolution, which is the digital revolution. Yeah. We, at the foundation, we train our entrepreneurs that you must be leveraging technology in one form or another. Otherwise, you don't exist in the 21st century. You must be disrupting, otherwise you're being disrupted. So I think that for Africa, what is going to make the difference for us is technology.
She couldn't have said it any better. We need to move away from a job-seeking mentality to a job creation mentality. Many people complete schools, again, expecting to be employed by the government. We need to change that mindset immediately. As she rightly said, government's job is not to create jobs, but to create an enabling environment for the private sector to thrive. In doing that, we need to train more entrepreneurs to give the necessary seed capital to start their businesses. The current government has also introduced the You Start initiative to support young entrepreneurs to gain access to capital, training, technical skills, and mentoring to enable them launch and operate their own businesses. I hope this intervention will work. However, based on the failures of previous interventions, some have expressed reservations on this program. Hopefully, this time round, things will be different. So if you are aged between 18 years to 40 years, please, please, please take advantage of this opportunity. Applicants are also expected to apply online via the You Start portal, which will be open to the public very soon. I believe that the government should also look at partnering with already existing institutions like the Tony Elumelu Foundation, who have the experience in this. Just give them the funds and let them train entrepreneurs and make sure the businesses are sustainable. Whilst talking about entrepreneurship and private sector, it is also important to point out some of the concerns raised about the employability of our graduates. We need to be able to train problem solvers. The current curricula of our tertiary institutions need to be more practical. We need to, churn out employable graduates. This is also, or this brings me to the interview I had with the Vice Chancellor of the Pentecost University, Professor Akpaloo, on how to achieve this. Let's look at the excerpt from this interview. During your induction in 2020, you promised again to transform Pentecost University into a world-class university that, trains problem solvers. It's been 2 years.
2 years now, amazing.
What have you achieved so far?
Fantastic. I remember saying that if you meet me anywhere, just ask me what problems are you solving, and I'm glad that I'm at the studio just to respond to that. Basically, we've trained lecturers now to identify problems. So it's no longer just going to the classroom to teach. We are collaborating with industries, internal and external, and thankfully there are a number of them that have signed MOUs with us. So our focus now is to identify industrial problems, economic problems, healthcare problems, church-based problems, and any form of problem you can identify. And our students are released out to work collaboratively with teams over there to solve these problems. And these are reported in conferences, seminars, and workshops.
I see. So overall, has the, the employability of your students improved? And what are the metrics? How do you even measure that, sir?
Fantastic. Let's step back and look at employability. Generally, universities are set up to provide students with employable skills. But Akosua, the question is, what are these employable skills? Employable skills are not contained in books. Employable skills are the requirement of industrialists and stakeholders. So if you want to create employable skills, then you must start working with industrialists. See problems in industries, invite technicians, engineers, and people who are working out there to come to the university. So if you take a typical module, it is not going to be handled by just a lecturer. He's going to invite somebody from the industry so they can talk about their challenges and issues over there. Then these are used as case studies for our students. So by doing that, although they have not graduated, they are acquiring skills to be able to solve the problems out there. Besides that, during vacations, they are given tailored programs. A typical example is a pre-engineering program we introduced. What is this about? We looked at engineering companies surrounding Soweto and said that, look, our guys can come there and work. Some could be working as welders, some could be working as fabricators, some could be working as molders and all that. By doing all this, they are gaining the skills that are necessary for the industry. They don't need to finish before they start looking for the skills.
Mindset is very important over the years. We built a culture where graduates, mostly rely on government jobs. How have you moved away, again, your students from seeking, jobs from the government and to creating their own jobs?
Thank you very much, Akosua, for that. What we have done now is to introduce a mandatory program for all our students. And it is like building a PU culture. What that does is it trains people to be entrepreneurial. It trains people to be responsible. So all students are supposed to go through these training modules until they complete. There's level 100, level 200, up to level 400. That is the enhanced version of the mentorship program I came to meet. So that all students, by the time they are completing, are not just going out to look for jobs. They are also building internal capacity to develop jobs for themselves. This may be very difficult because some of the courses are not geared towards that. But even with that, because we are doing entrepreneurship across board, they have the tendency to spot problems. I could say the reality of it is when we talk about entrepreneurship, sometimes we make it far up there. The fundamental truth of entrepreneurship is the skill to identify problems. We are only paid for solving problems. We only increase in our career for solving bigger problems. The bigger your problems, the higher you get recognized for what you do. Ideally, you even get paid higher for solving bigger problems. That is in a fair system, by the way. But general entrepreneurship should start from the core to understand problem identification.
I think we all agree that teaching models at our universities need to be revised. We have a situation where the environment trains students to chew and pour. We need to also move away from this. We need to identify the problem we are facing as a country and design practical courses that train students to solve these problems. Our universities need to step up their game. You're still watching The Hard Truth. It's a season finale. We'll be right back. Now, let's move on to politics. I interviewed Sylvester Mensah of the NDC on the 30th anniversary of their party and what the future holds for the party, NDC. He talked about the contributions of the NDC to Ghana and maintained that the party still held dear the values of probity, accountability, openness, and social justice, despite accusations by the late former President Rawlings that the party was losing these values. Again, let's take a look at these excerpts from the interview.
Has the NDC betrayed these values? We talked about that before, as the founder suggested.
I'm not sure about that. I don't think so. I mean, of course, there have been a few challenges and difficulties, but the perfidy of an individual cannot serve as a basis for redefining the whole. And so people have names, and if an individual is found wanting, it does not necessarily represent the whole. In a situation where an attitude appears to be widespread, then it becomes the dominant attitude, which could define the whole. And so we need to look at it from that perspective. Of course, our late founder, President Rawlings, were quite emotional about our principles and our values, and will not spare any opportunity to, as it were, re-echo them, and also...
So leadership didn't betray the values of the party, as he accused or stated earlier?
No, I don't think so. Unity has always remained a relative term. There are relativities. It is the degree of unity. You cannot have a huge political party like the NDC that commands almost half of our Ghanaian electorate, and you want to think that we're going to have a common mindset about our developmental agenda. We may even, in situations where we have the same focus, the same objective, we may have different approaches to achieving the same objective. To that extent, the NDC is very united, but of course, there are interest groups going into an election. A wants to be chairman, B wants to be secretary, A wants to be organizer.
Is that not normal? I mean, isn't
that is normal. But of course, that also has a way of generating heat within. This quantum of resources that we have received under the Nana-Addo presidency, what is there to show about it?
You lost the elections massively in 2016, and that was the first time in history that a certain government would just lose massively after just one term. So again, if you did amazing, you mentioned all these projects that you did, education-wise, road-wise, health-wise. Why were you voted out?
Now let me correct you that we didn't lose after one term. We have had a two-term cycle of 8 years.
But you were saying, so now you clarify this.
And the NDC as a political party, you haven't allowed me to land. The NDC as a political party had run the full two-term cycle. First 4 years under President Mills, and the second 4 years under President Mahama. Of course, President Mahama had a few months at the tail end of President Mills's leadership. And so we had our full 8-year cycle. And so, no political party in this country has, as it were, transcended that cycle, that our electorate.
So you lost because what time for you to go was 8 years and you had to go. It wasn't because of your performance. What are you saying?
I think that we lost after 8 years.
Sylvester, your party had a poor track record under President Mahama. You can talk about, scandals like the 5.1 million scandal. We can talk about the 850,000 bias branding scandal. Sada is there, and the guinea fowl business and all of that. So, as a party that prides itself once again, with probity, accountability, and fairness and openness and all that, this is like a great indictment on your party. Wouldn't you say that?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I think that comparatively, of course, as I said earlier, the perfidy of an individual cannot be used as a measure in defining the collective. And we need to get that quite straight. It is only when it becomes a dominant trend that we could use in defining, as we can define the MPP today as a very corrupt party, because the corruption within the MPP is so pervasive, so overwhelming, and Ghanaians are beginning to worry, and they are extremely disappointed in their choice of voting for the MPP for another 4 years to complete their 8-year cycle. I think that we have gotten to a point where the people of this country have clearly assessed the two main political parties, the NDC and the MPP,
Sylvester Mensah believes that the people of Ghana are fed up with the NPP and hence will vote them out of power. What do you think? Personally, I think NDC-NPP duopoly has not helped us as a nation. I also believe that the resources we have as a country is not where we are supposed to be or with the resources we have right now. I think Ghana should have been somewhere far better. Corruption has been a key issue in the government of both parties. They make promises but largely fail to deliver. So how do we break the duopoly? Does it look like it's possible? Well, I guess time will tell. The power is in your hands as a Ghanaian. Now, moving on to the NPP, the party wants to break the 8. That's their mantra. They elected new party executives, which saw John Boyd voted out. A new national chairman in the person of Stephen Ntim was elected. These new executives are expected to work towards breaking the 8. As whether this will be achieved, your guess is as good as mine. How or here are some of the excerpts of that interview. Now, Dr. Bawumia blamed the prevailing difficulties on COVID-19, in the Russia-Ukraine war. And he said the President Mahamis or former Mahamis government. Now, do you think that this is the time or the time is prudent for him to still blame these things on a previous government?
So I don't want to reduce this to a personal argument.
I'm listening.
But most importantly, we are in the 6th year of our term, or the 2nd year of our 2nd term. So making references too far back is not the most prudent thing to do. I think that as a government, we came and met the challenges, accepted those challenges, and that's why we're voted into office, and we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it. Take the decisions that, in our view, will give us the best opportunity to be able to solve our problems. Governance is about providing solutions to problems that we face as a country, imposing order and discipline in our country. And I've said, a place like the ports in Tema, the amount of money that I believe that we should be earning, we are earning far less because the place leaks like a basket. It's important that you take grip of certain situations, because I've been governing before and I know.
What do you make of, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta's performance as a finance minister?
I think you enjoy picking particular ministers.
Why? I'm asking you. He's a finance minister holding a very important position in the country.
I think
what do you make of his performance?
Yes. It's part of a government. Of course, you have a finance minister. You should be able to have your own personal imprint. But as I said, the sweetness of the pudding lies in the eating. Is that not it? So this is where we've ended. So it's not for me to say anything. We are where we are.
And that's his fault,
Well, we are where we are. So as a country, you, as they say, you reap what you sow. In life generally, you reap what you sow.
Should he resign? Should the finance minister resign?
I would think that on the basis of what he said 2 weeks before to the whole country, which is that we will never go to the IMF and we're a proud country, we have the resources. And when you speak like that, you should look yourself in the mirror and say, look, I got it wrong. Mr. President, I thank you for giving me the opportunity and I should stand down.
I think the new executives of the NPP have a long way to go and they have a very tough job to perform. I have been wondering for the past few months if breaking the 8 will be possible for the NPP considering the level of dissatisfaction Ghanaians currently feel. Will Ghanaians be willing to give another 4-year term? Between now and 2024 elections, will things change as Ghanaians? Will we give them another term? Think about it. These are all questions that I personally have been curious about. And ultimately, what impact will the choice of flag bearer have on the fortunes of their party, the NPP? The managing director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, Mr. Jubik Mahama, also appeared on the show to talk about meter auditing exercise they are conducting and making ECG more viable and financially sustainable. They hope to cut down on commercial losses by tackling illegal connections, meter tampering, among others. We also talked about the Krobo issues. Thankfully, power has been restored to the Krobo municipality. Now, let's take a look at some of the excerpts from that interview.
What I'd like to say is that my customers in Manya Krobo and Yellow Krobo have had an issue with my company since 2014. From 2014 to 2017, their total debt stock was 168 million Ghana cedis. There were issues of overbilling. There were issues that led to all of these conversations and these impasse. We now said, the overbilling, ECG accepted this fault in it and said, okay, we had a problem with our billing system and all of that. Now, let's find a way forward. So, as I'm speaking to you, since 2014, some, I wouldn't say all of them, some people were paying. But some people, at the most, a huge number, I say those who were paying don't even come up to about 6%. The rest were not paying. Now, fast forward to today. There were whole conversations about the way forward. I come into office, my question is, if I can chase people in Fadama to pay their bill by giving them prepaid, I should be able to do the same thing in Manakobo. If I can ask the people in Dansuman to pay bills through prepaid, I should be able to do that in Yellow Krobo. So the conversation was, let's give you prepaid meters, so that the issue of overbilling and billing doesn't come in anywhere. You take the prepaid, then what? You buy your power, you consume. Now,
they said they had an agreement with the Nkrumah.
My sister, if we are to go on that tangent, I don't even want us to bring that into this, because if we are to go on that tangent, then the people of La should say that they should be flying in the plane for free because the airport belongs to them. It's on their land. And what would the people of the Western region say about the oil reserves? And
so yes, you have legit reasons to go for your money, and to give them meters. But
I'm running a business. I cannot treat anybody special from the other. And my point is, take the prepaid meters and let me give you power. They have been terrorizing ECG employees. They have beaten some. Yes, we've not had the best of relationships, I must admit. If I can chase people in Fadama to pay their bill by giving them prepaid, I should be able to do the same thing in Manakobo. If I can ask the people in Dansuman to pay bills through prepaid, I should be able to do that in Yellow Krobo. So the conversation was, let's give you prepaid meters, so that the issue of overbilling and billing doesn't come in anywhere. You take the prepaid, then what? You buy your power, you consume. Now,
they said they had an agreement with the Nkrumah.
My sister, if we are to go on that tangent, I don't even want us to bring that into this, because if we are to go on that tangent, then the people of La should say that they should be flying in the plane for free because the airport belongs to them. It's on their land. And what would the people of the Western region say about the oil reserves? And
so yes, you have legit reasons to go for your money, and to give them meters. But
I'm running a business. I cannot treat anybody special from the other. And my point is, take the prepaid meters and let me give you power. They have been terrorizing ECG employees. They have beaten some. Yes, we've not had the best of relationships, I must admit.
You're still watching The Hard Truth. We'll be right back to stay. My personal view on the meter auditing is that the exercise is long overdue. We need to pay for the tariffs or electricity we consume regarding the recent increase in electricity tariffs by 27.15%. I think now is not the time to be increasing tariffs. The economy is in crisis and cost of living is increasing. ECG should focus more on addressing their commercial losses in order to show up for their finances. We had the Finance Minister, Honorable Ofori-Atta, on the show to talk about the deterioration economic situation and government's efforts at addressing it. He admitted that things were hard and the reasons to go to the IMF despite their earlier pronouncement that we won't do that. Now let's take a look at some of the excerpts from that interview.
E-levy has really revealed certain weaknesses that occurred in terms of that tax handle. And there's no question in my mind that given where our economy is going, e-levy is one of those tax handles that's going to play a key, important role in the way in which we manage our revenue resources.
How much have we accrued from e-levy?
So far, the expectation was about 500, 600 million a month. We had, by the time we went through this fight between November and March 29th, when it was finally passed, we had now had to make way for a lot of exemptions, which really then impacted that. So in looking at the anatomy of e-levy, the realization now was that about 70% of the resources that would have garnered from that, we gave exemptions to merchants and banks, etc., and that has to be looked at. Then another 20% or so with regards to how agents work and how banks were also given exemptions. So really this period, so we've been getting literally about 10% of what we were scheduled to get over that period.
Kenneth, would Jesus be happy with you on the way you've managed the economy? Finally.
I think it's an issue of willingness and obedience to what Christ would like us to do. Honest, good job done over that period, yes. Holy Spirit guiding us to the things we do, yes. Am I confident that He's leading us in the right direction? Unequivocally. I think difficult times, His power will emanate. And I'm very confident about where He will take us.
So Jesus is happy with you with how you manage the economy?
You know, it's very difficult to think that one will be holy enough for total acceptance. You're constantly praying that you have the courage and the spirit to go on. But more importantly, you know, in all of this technical stuff, it's a clear love for country and understanding of what somebody like me could become finance minister, and therefore who in Fantiakwa could also do that. And therefore, what should we be doing 18 hours a day to ensure we give that opportunity to people to be able to get to the levels that we are.
Ken,
so
really, Jesus be happy with you on how you manage the economy?
It's up to Jesus to declare.
It's up to Jesus to declare.
I can do the best that I can, but I'm very just honored and blessed to have this position, and mine is to obey and do the best I can, you know, with His guidance.
Now, when this interview was conducted, the finance minister indicated that with the interventions government had adopted, including going to the IMF, things would gradually improve. But that hasn't been the case. We have seen international agencies like Fitch and Standard and Moody's downgrading Ghana's economy to virtually junk status. Inflation for July was around 31%. The cedi has depreciated so much that it now goes at 10 Ghana cedis to the dollar. Interest rates have increased, and international bank Goldman Sachs believes that government is not showing a sense of urgency in working to secure the IMF bailout, considering the worsening macroeconomic instability. What is happening? It seems that whatever measure government is implementing is not yielding the necessary result. Has the government lost control over the economy? Calls on government to review its flagship programs have failed on or fallen on deaf ears. Called for ministerial reshuffle has, been rejected by the president. Calls for national dialogue has not yielded any response from government. I think government has to accept that they need help. Bring everyone on board to get us out of this crisis. Mr. President, please listen to your people. Again, as an aside, one question I asked the finance minister, which gained a lot of attention, was whether Jesus was happy with the way he managed the economy. Many didn't understand why I asked that question. I wanted to move away from the economics and figures and get to the personal, or to him on the personal level. One of his statements made during the Meet the Press was that he sees life in three ways: in a political emancipation way, economic emancipation way, and a spiritual uplift. Talking about spirituality, we all know that the finance minister is fond of Bible quotations and takes spirituality very seriously. So it is within that context that I asked the question to let him judge himself whether he's in good standing with Maker on how he has managed the economy. We also had Kofi Akpaloo, the founder of the Liberal Party of Ghana, appearing on the show. According to him, we need to be serious as a country. He also said that Kwame Nkrumah cursed Ghana. Well, whatever that means, that's a conversation for another day. Let's take a look at some of the excerpts from that interview. Why do you think it would make any difference in 2024?
2024 will be different in the sense that more people have tried MPP and they've experienced what MPP had offered them. And NDC, they knew them already. Even
how? Tell me about NDC.
NDC, they've been with us for 27 years, and they know what they can do for Ghanaians.
Which is what?
That's what we have. Unemployment and a whole lot. I mean,
NDC gave
bad
Ghanaians
rules.
Unemployment, bad rules.
Deplorable educational infrastructure. A whole lot. Even, I don't know whether we listened to the chairman recently, their national chairman.
Kofo.
He said NCNC, no contribution, no chop. He's saying that when they assume power, in case they assume power in 2024, they are going to chop our money. And Ghana here, when you say chop,
and he categorically said you are going to chop Ghanaians.
He said no contribution, no chop. What are they coming to chop?
Categorically said you're going to chop our money.
No. When he said no contribution, no chop, what is he coming to chop?
So now NDC give us unemployment, bad roads. That's
yes.
what you just said. And then NPP, what's NPP doing to us now?
Now you are going through hardship. You are experiencing what you are going through. Okay, the contractors are not being paid. Everybody is complaining. There's no food on your table. So I don't know why you are going to vote for MPP and NDC.
So now let's come back to the question. So what would you do differently?
LPG is the alternative. MPP and NDC will not do anything to help you. So the best option is LPG.
I'm interested in knowing the lessons that you've learned in these years when you lost in the 2020 election. What lessons have you learned after assessing your performance?
For that one, I cannot disclose them here because it's our weapon now. So I can't disclose them.
The lessons you have learned is your weapon. You can't disclose.
Yeah, I can't disclose them because we've learned from it and we are going to improve. So I cannot tell you.
You have said that the solution to the social and economic challenges confronting Ghana is, captured in the LPG 2024 manifesto. How realistic are, your policies and what makes them unique?
We are going to have only 19 ministers in our government.
Okay.
There won't be more than 19 ministers. Because we're not going to use any regional minister.
Why?
I don't know the role they play. I don't know their
relevance.
Exactly. So we are not going to use them. Because every district has a district chief executive or municipal chief executive. So what is the essence of
19 ministers?
Exactly.
No deputies. Are you going to have deputies?
No, part of it.
I see.
Yeah, because we're going to have only 30 ministries.
Do you, Kofi, think we need a Lee Kuan Yew in Ghana?
Yes, I'm the one.
You are the Lee Kuan Yew, but you said you're a liberal. Lee Kuan Yew wasn't a liberal. But he wasn't a liberalist.
No, I'm not here to preach socialist inclined or capitalist inclined. I'm here in the middle. So Lee Kuan Yew or Kwame Nkrumah. Kwame Nkrumah, if you have listened to Kwame Nkrumah, you realize that Kwame Nkrumah was not even a socialist or communist. He was a liberal. And Lee Kuan Yew, if you listen to him properly, then you know that he is a liberal. Because he wanted the best for his country. So he was not putting any other person there. He was putting people who have, or what it takes.
Who merited it.
Exactly. And then people who are honest to deliver.
So that's what your party will do.
Exactly.
Finally, if you get to be the president of Ghana, 2025 after the election, will you legalize LGBTQ activities in Ghana?
Oh, no. That's not in our manifesto. Check our manifesto. We've never said anything of that sort in our manifesto. And we will not. I'm a Christian. I'm not going to do that.
So we should just pray for them and allow them.
I'm going to declare fasting, prayer and fasting. 1 week prayer and fasting. To pray for this country. Because the problems of this country, we need to pray for this land. Because Kwame Nkrumah cursed this land. And we need to pray for this land. We need to declare prayer and fasting and pray for this land to be healed. People take spiritual things for granted. We need to pray. People who have been entangled in all these things, we need to pray for them to be released.
Thank you so much for staying tuned to The Hard Truth. Thank you once again for all your support. But I'll say this, the economy is broken, but all hope is not lost. Ezekiel 22:23 going down there says something like this, and I quote, that the word of God came to me, and I looked for someone among them who would build the wall and stand in the gap on behalf of the people, so I would not have it destroyed, but I have found none. Even though the economy is broken, we should all stand fast and contribute our quota to getting us out of this stage. The government should also be honest and truthful to us, so that if we all have to make some sacrifices with assurance that things will get better, we can do that. There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, I can't close the season without talking about the difficulty in securing guests for this program. Many of them run away from the show, and I really don't know why. You call them for the interview and they refuse to come, giving you a whole list of excuses. Please, it's a partnership. Let's all work together to build a better Ghana. We've been watching The Hard Truth, this being the season finale. Thank you so much for being part of the season 16. It's been amazing. I want to say a big thank you to all our guests, to Alvin in Singapore, Ifeyinwa, the finance minister. The list goes on and on. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of the season finale. And to you viewers, we wouldn't have had the show if it hadn't been for you. And to the crew, to Paul, to Sule, to Baraka, to everyone, to Livingston, we are so grateful. Fab, thank you all. So this is the season finale once again of The Hard Truth. My name is Nana Akosua Konadu Asante Samuels. We'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you. Bye. Good night.